Welcome to the Habit-Based Lifestyle Podcast. Use the power of discovering new habits to create success in all areas of life. Body, fitness and nutrition, being, spirituality, passion and purpose, balance, marriage, kids and relationships, business, marketing, sales, leadership and systems. Transform your life by learning how habits work. And now your host, a husband, father, entrepreneur, trainer, coach, and warrior, Jesse Ewell.
Welcome back to the Habit-Based Lifestyle Podcast. I'm your host, Jesse Ewell, and today we're going to be talking about the habit of stress. I have a guest on here today that I'm super excited to talk to. His name is Paul Sorbo. He's part of team over at Wavi. He is a human optimization enthusiast and entrepreneur, and he is going to be on here today talking to us about this device that actually measures performance of your brain. And great to have you on here, man.
Hey, I appreciate it, man. I'm excited for this.
Yeah. So what is this device? I heard about this device about 6 weeks ago. It's called Wavi. But I was kind of intrigued by it. I'm like, hey, I'm just going to go to the source and find out more about this. But what is this?
Right. So Wavi basically is in simplistic terms is an all-in-one brain performance platform. So really, what we look at in healthcare is we've always measured, our blood pressure, our cholesterol, our plaque count, our kidneys, our hearts, our lung, right? But we've never had the feasibility or the accessibility to measure anything in the brain because it's never been affordable to people. What Wavi's done is we've taken things that have been around for forever, like EEG, which is pretty traditional way of looking at the brain, as well as ERP, which is evoked response potential. And just looking at how your brain processes signals. And we make that accessible to people for a full comprehensive brain scan in less than 12 minutes with instantaneous reporting.
Okay. And so for people not listening, can you, did you say the EGG and the ERG? What is
ERP? So
ERP.
So EEG looks at your raw brain waves. So your brain produces microfrequency. Most people have heard of, the different states that your brain produces or that your brain can be in. So alpha, delta, beta, theta, gamma, right?
Yeah.
So your brain produces this microfrequency at all times. What we do, or what EEG does, is it picks up on that microfrequency, and we're able to see the concentration as well as just the full clinical EEG that your brain is producing that microfrequency at, or those micro electro signals that's happening. So we're picking that up. ERP is evoked response potential. So your brain, so basically if I snap, your brain processes that at a speed and a voltage. It's basically how much available energy your brain has to donate towards any given signal that you're trying to process throughout the day. Now, this can be visually or it can be auditory based. It can do both. And we have ways of measuring both. The reality of P300, or that's what that value is called, is it's just like you have a heart rate, you have a rate at which your brain processes signals. It responds to everything. It responds to stress, like we talked about. It responds to poor cardiovascular health, poor diet, poor exercise habits, lack of sleep, concussions, traumatic brain injuries, etc. Almost everything can affect how your brain processes signals, but there's never been that way to measure it. And so now that we have the way to measure it, just to paint a really quick picture, dementia and Alzheimer's, you don't catch. It develops over 15, 20 years.
Right.
What happens if you have comprehensive brain scans every year, year over year, and instead of wondering when cognitive decline happens, we can see it and we can intervene? We can work with concussion research to see exactly when a player's brain has returned to their baseline before the season after a concussive event. TBIs, we can actually track the progress of how your brain and or neuroplasticity is happening. We can see the effects of things like stress, poor cardiovascular health, poor diet, nutrition, exercise habits that actually have on your brain. And hopefully what we can do is we can educate people and we can show them that what they can do is they can not only improve the way their brain is performing, but also simply maintain it and not hopefully experience cognitive decline.
Okay. So what you're saying is like, hey, we can get real-time feedback within 4 minutes to 12 minutes. Is that how
With
long?
full setup, it's 12 to 15 minutes the most. The actual test only takes 4 minutes itself.
Okay, so we can get real-time feedback from the foods we eat, supplements we take, the sleep we get, to athletics, to pretty much anything we do. You have the ability with this to get real-time feedback.
Literally, yeah. Anything you want to measure, even for athletes. I mean, I'm an athlete by trade, used to bodybuild, play lacrosse, football, snowboarding. How are we making sure that these athletes, my wife used to train for the Olympic team here in Colorado for modern pentathlon. And one of the biggest issues right now that's happening is overtraining. And there was a recent study that came out that overtraining affects the brain. Well, how are you measuring that? You don't have an affordable way to measure that. Well, all of a sudden, if we can track these athletes' proper recovery and make sure that their brain is optimized, how much better can they do not only mentally, but physically as well?
Right. And, the same could be said with, entrepreneurs or people working in, a business is pretty much any business is going to be stressful, especially if you're an owner. But like, what is the effect of you working 16, 18, 20 hours a day, not getting sleep, maybe going to the bar on the way home? And like, what is the effect of that for like, not only just like a month or one night, but like years of doing that?
Right. No, and that's the big problem, is that people don't realize the effect that can have. A lot of the leading experts in the world believe that the top 3 leading causes of dementia and Alzheimer's are poor cardiovascular health, lack of sleep. And those are really 2 that are really, really important. But surprisingly, what you wouldn't understand, what you wouldn't expect, is that lack of hearing.
Okay.
Every one of those things has to do with it. But that lack of sleep is so important. And being somebody that's obviously growing a startup, not only with Wavi, but some of the other things that I do in my life, as you and I have talked about, sleep is not always something that is the front of an entrepreneur's mind. It's, I got to grind. What more can I do? I can do more. What we don't realize is that those have long-lasting effects on not only just how well our brain processes signals, but just our overall well-being. Your brain controls your whole body, from your heart rate to your blood pressure to your hormones to your sleep cycles. Literally, it's so important to make sure that we're taking care of this. And so hopefully by giving people a way to measure this, what we can do is we can encourage them to not only continue to grind and continue to work for their business, but also continue to work on their self-improvement and continue to take care of their body, because your business is only as good as effective as you are.
Yeah, that's so true, man. So who's this for, man? If we're like thinking about, like, you kind of have 2 sides, I've read on your thing, where you have the performance side and then you also have the medical, but like, who is this really for?
So it's really for everybody, to be quite frank, man. And I know that sounds a little bit fishy, but it really is. Everybody in the world is getting everyone should be getting their blood pressure checked. Everyone should be having their blood panels done. Everyone should be having their brain assessed. Kids in athletics, football's a big issue right now. A lot of my good friends are in the NFL and play in the NCAA. And it's, how do I extend my career? How do I not just play for 3 years? I want to play for 15 years.
Right.
Let's make sure that we have the right data behind your brain and how it's recovering, possibly, rather than just sending you back to play. We were in a 6-year longitudinal study with a Division I NCAA team. And what's scary, I was talking about that P300 measurement. The big issue with that is the universal biomarker, but on average, or in 100% of players, they have at minimum a 40% drop in their P300 voltage.
Wow.
That's how much energy your brain has to donate towards any given signal. And after a concussion, you have a 40% drop in that. Now, the scary part behind this, and this was a blind study, is that 43% of players are going back before their brain has actually returned back to baseline voltage. What we saw through this is that through the end of the season, 2, 3, 4 seasons down the line, that voltage may not return when that's the case. So how do we make sure that's not happening and that we're providing our players the best data possible for, the research and the recovery of such events? I'm a huge sports guy. I believe in team sports. I believe in lacrosse, football, and what it does for kids and getting kids outside of the house and encouraging creativity, which is something we can talk about for business. But on top of it, 1 in 2 people in the next 20 years are supposed to develop a cognitive decline issue. If you think about it, 60+% of America is morbidly obese.
Right.
From that, what does their biometrics look like? What's their cholesterol, their blood pressure, their plaque look like? I guarantee it's not optimal.
Right.
At that point, you have blood flow being restricted in both your carotid arteries. If I cut off blood flow to your bicep for the next 15 years, what's going to happen to your bicep? It's probably going to atrophy and die.
Yeah.
Right? People are walking around doing this to their brain every single day of the week, continuing to live poor lifestyle choices. And it's not just the overweight. It's poor stress management. It's poor sleep habits. It's poor workout, poor diet. All of this boils down to your stress and your controlling of the stress.
Wow. Yeah. And then you throw in like cell phones, iPads, computers, it's kind of like a toxic mess.
No, I mean, dude, we have some great partners, over at Upgrade Labs and, Dave Asprey, Mark Tobias, and those guys talk about blue light radiation and things that, to be quite frank, what's been so cool about Wavi and my journey with Wavi is not only my ability to improve my own brain. I had a series of concussions growing up with athletics. I used to snowboard, mountain bike. I was a teenage kid, right? So had a lot more concussions than I should. But not only that, these are all actionable items, but it's also showed me things that you can take control of your health, for lack of a better term. You can take control of your stress. You can take control of things like depression and anxiety. You can take control of how your brain performs and processes signals. But also it's showed me a lot of things that I thought were total BS. I thought that neuroplasticity, I'm like, is it real? Yeah, we can regrow neurons in the brain and it can help function better. Blue light therapy. Yeah, blue light does affect the brain. Improper sleep. I sleep probably 3 hours a night, but don't do what I do. Definitely don't do what I do. I'm working on it, but it showed me that I really need to take control of those things and manage my stress better.
Yeah. So I've done 40 years of Zen.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is, you've probably heard of the program.
Extremely familiar. Yeah. I was up there a couple months ago.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing is that's kind of like a training. This is like your assessment and saying, okay, well, here's what's going on.
Yep.
But then you still have to put some things in action. It's kind of like, this is the assessment tool, almost like a scale would be for someone wanting to lose weight or lose body fat.
Exactly.
And then you have a protocol or something to do to improve that, correct?
100%. What we want to do is if we establish a baseline, and it doesn't matter what that baseline is, right? It can be preseason, it can be year over year, it can be pre-supplement, pre-intervention. We can then compare post-baseline or post-intervention or post-treatment or post-year, year over year, and we can assess the difference. Are we making an improvement, or at minimum, are we not seeing a decline? Or what is changing in the brain? What's not changing in the brain, etc.
Okay, so like you said, you've been doing this. Are you using this on NFL and college players right now?
It's in the process. I have some personal friends that I have scans on. I have individuals that I have scans on. We're working our way through that. It's a little bit of a bureaucratic system, to be quite frank with you. So the education needs to be wrapped around that. So that's something that we're really, really working in. Like I said, we did do that 6-year longitudinal study with the NCAA. And that data is finally coming out. So there are some coaches that we've spoken with, and unfortunately I can't reveal who, that are really intrigued, because it's not just the concussion protocol, right? It's the mental wellness.
Right.
One of our amazing partners is Mark Helinski. Are you familiar with the Helinski Hope Foundation?
It sounds familiar.
So there's a E60 out on it, and it's really amazing. What they preach about is the mental wellness side of things. Mental health is a big issue right now in our youth. It really is. Depression, anxiety, especially for athletes. These athletes are under a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
And so it's not just I need to get back into the game. It's how do I make sure that I'm taking care of my brain, my body, my mental awareness of where I'm at to make sure that I'm better prepared to play the game. And so, he's really been educating things like one of the markers that Wabi looks at is a depression and anxiety marker. Now, it's not a diagnostic tool, but it's a marker. And the reason we put it in there, people that typically suffer from depression and or anxiety typically have off alpha symmetry in their frontal lobe. Okay. Again, just because you have off alpha symmetry in your frontal lobe doesn't mean you're depressed or anxious. But typically, if you suffer from that, you do have off alpha symmetry in the frontal lobe. The reason we have it on there as a tool is to show people that it's a state. It's not a trait. It's something that you can control and take action about. Okay. And each one of these things are going to be different for each individual, but all of a sudden, I think it moves that notation of I have depression to I can manage and I can control my depression. But it's establishing it's the habits. And we get back to, which is what I love about your podcast. What are the habits that you take part of every single day to not only optimize yourself or your body or your brain or your business, but also to optimize the things that you struggle with? Everyone struggles with things.
Yeah. Right? Well, I mean, I think for me, the reason why I got into habits was because I could focus on those versus focusing on maybe having anxiety or depression or what I lacked or what somebody maybe diagnosed me with. And it was
right.
It was easier for me to focus on things that got me what I want than be like, well, I have depression. I'm just going to focus on being depressed.
Totally. 100%.
And I think that's what, kind of society is like, okay, so you have depression or you have anxiety. So here's a pill and this will, at least not make it worse. It's not necessarily going to make it better, and we're just going to rely on this versus saying, okay, well, here's a habit that you could do like exercise or walking.
Totally.
Or meditation, and this would actually give you a different result than a pill. But, I think people today is like, well, I just want the quick fix. So just give me the pill.
I think that's a lot of the big issue. But I think what a lot of people don't realize, like if you want to talk about SSRIs in particular, SSRIs or depression meds have a very, very short half-life, and they actually alter the way that your brain completely functions. And unfortunately, about a week after, your brain's a machine, your body's a machine, right?
Right.
It's input, output. You give it some sort of stimuli and it responds. So when you work out, you are putting the muscle under stress. Your body's responding by building more myofilament, hopefully, right? And making sure that you're better equipped for that stress. When you give it a drug that downregulates or upregulates any sort of one of your neurotransmitters, hormones, etc., what's happening on the other side is that your body goes, oh, cool, I don't have to produce as much, or I do. And all of a sudden, that drug that you were taking to normalize, you're back out of whack a week later.
Yeah, that's crazy, man.
Kind of insane, right?
Yeah. It makes you wonder why you would even take them. But I mean, that's so.
And there are some people that need them. I don't want to, there are some people that it helps change their life.
Yeah.
But in general, I'm not a pharmaceutical guy. I don't like pain pills. I don't like, SSRIs. There are a lot of other ways to help manage these types of things. And a lot of it boils down to managing your lifestyle and your stress.
Right. So what are some things that you've seen? Do you measure yourself and you measure other people, I'm guessing, but what are things that you see that have either improved performance in the brain or even made it worse?
So let's talk about the worst things first. So the things that are really terrible for your brain, to be quite frank, are lack of sleep.
Okay.
And that's really important, especially for your listeners. Like, look, don't do what I do. It's not good. You need to sleep more than 3 hours a night. Just because you like think that you're pushing yourself and on the grind, you're making yourself 10 times less efficient, and you're literally making it so your brain and your body are not able to recover.
Right.
Sleep is our body's way of recovering. It's literally what stimulates growth hormone, and REM sleep is our entire endocrine system. I mean, don't get me wrong, there's other signals, but a big part of that recovery with the lymph system and everything that we do happens while we sleep. When you're not sleeping, that's not happening.
Yeah, and let's talk about, like, sleep is about quality, not about quantity.
Quantity.
So you like you talked about, you have, REM, deep, you have like the states of being awake,
Yep.
and you also have brain waves. So all of these things factor into quality
Totally.
over quantity. Because I do see a lot of people that are like, hey, I'm wearing a Whoop band or an Aura ring. It's tracking my
Totally.
sleep. But it's like, well, you're awake for, 2 hours. And then the sleep that you did get, you were in a light sleep for like 4 of those hours. And so for the whole 8 hours, you maybe got like 30 minutes of deep sleep and maybe like 30 minutes of REM. And the rest of the time you were either in a light sleep or awake.
Yeah, and that's what a lot of people don't realize it's unless you can measure it. And I don't get me wrong, I do love those things like Aura rings and Whoop and all of these different biomarkers. I'm a tech geek. Obviously, I like to measure things. I work for a brain company, obviously, but the key is that it is important, and it's realizing those habits that actually improve your sleep or your exercise. And sleep, obviously, we're just focused on right now, but don't drink caffeine, which is, again, right before you go to bed. It does change the way that your body and your brain are functioning, right? If you're sleeping, make sure it's a comfortable sleeping environment. It's not loud. Make sure you're limiting your exposure to light before you go to bed, because light does alter the way that your brain is actually processing signals. Light is 100% driven on circadian rhythm, light and dark. When you're looking at your tablet, your phone, literally right before you go to sleep, your brain is thinking, it's wake up time. I'm good, right? When in reality, you should be shutting down melatonin production from the gut, and the gut is the second brain, should be at an all-time high. You've exposed your brain to light, and so all of a sudden that melatonin production is suppressed. Fall asleep, how long does it take you proper sleep cycle? It's blood flow, it's perfusion, it's those healthy habits. How do we make sure that those healthy habits are happening, both from diet, nutrition, to exercise as well? And diet is so, I hate the word diet. Let me rephrase that. It's lifestyle. What is your lifestyle? You can do so much with natural foods. And I'm not saying vegan or keto or find what works best for you. Everyone's going to have their opinions, but the reality of it is your brain needs healthy fats. It needs omegas, it needs fatty fishes, it needs that type of thing. It's really, really important. And if you're not getting it from fish, you better be getting it from cashews, peanut butters, oat, that kind of stuff. And so those make a huge difference. I have cardiologists that are showing that just improving the cardiovascular function, both from cholesterol, blood pressure, plaque, are making 40, 50, 60, 70% increases in brain function. We have individual, clinics that are working on supplements that are hopefully improving P300 voltage. Things like antioxidants, reducing oxidative stress, to get back to the stress thing. And all of those things do improve it. Things that make it on the other side, which is where I want to start, are all the things on the opposite end of the spectrum.
Right.
When you're not working out, you're not eating what you're supposed to eat, you're not sleeping correctly, pharmaceutical drugs, alcohol, those types of things, they don't do good things for your brain, people. They just don't.
Right. So as you measure these, people can either buy these themselves, or you can go to a medical professional and have a test done. But as you have either one of these done, where's a good place to start on those side of the spectrums?
So we have normatives that we can compare you basically to your peers based on your age group, demographics, that kind of stuff. But really what it boils down is you against you. And mostly as we're expanding, we're going to be in performance clinics and medical practitioners. I don't think we're going to be rolling anything out for home yet, just because it is such a sensitive medical device.
Okay.
But we are really, really rapidly expanding across the United States and even the globe. We have practitioners in Italy, in London, etc. And so as that's happening, it's really important to know that you can take your wellness into your hands.
Right.
But if you can't measure it, you can't improve it or you can't control it. So it's really important to establish the baseline so that we can compare you against you, not only on a yearly basis, but if anything ever happens. If you get in a car accident, how do you know if your brain is the same before and after? Well, if you don't have a baseline measurement, I can't tell you.
Right.
Right?
And so how would somebody have this measured if they didn't use this? Like you have to go to can you even measure everything it's measuring by going to the doctor or?
Not in an all-in-one, in all honesty. That's the big problem is it's never been accessible. I mean, a traditional EEG, like my setup of my EEG takes 4 to 5 minutes. Doesn't matter if you have a weave or an afro or you're bald or you're not, right? It's pretty simple. And that's what our patented hardware is. But, a traditional EEG looks like a torture device. It's this wet cap or a dry cap with all these like needles that go into your head. Or you're using EEG gel. And if you've ever had EEG gel in your hair or on your head, it's like the worst thing in the world.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like you're washing it out 4 days later.
Right.
So we don't use EEG gel. We don't have to shave your head. It takes 4 minutes, not 2 hours to set up in a clinical application. So that's the key. Anyone can go get an EEG done, but how are you going to get a prescription to go get an EEG done?
Right.
The problem is it's only looked at when there's a problem, not preventatively.
Right. And if there's a problem, the chances are it's already probably too late to really like do a lot of stuff about it.
Yeah. And there are things that can improve it, but what if we caught it 10 years earlier?
Right. Well, what I always say is like, there's no preventative medicine to work on this. It's only either after the problem's already happened or something traumatic has had to happen to go get it checked. And so what you've came up with is a preventative device to say, okay, well, let's look at and establish a baseline so we can see how you can improve on this.
Yeah, I mean, it's really amazing. So Dr. Oakley, David Oakley, he's been a part of 3 or 4 Nobel physics teams, really just an amazing individual. He's a data guy. He's a neutrino physicist by trade. He ran the particle accelerator at Los Alamos. And the big problem in healthcare is that there was never really a way to look at correlatory data. It's always been, the Baconian method. And the Baconian method's great. It's been around since 1650 or maybe even before then. But it's really, really expensive in medicine, right? I think this will work. Let's test it 17 different times. $1 billion later, we have a new therapy. So the whole back end side of Wavi is raw data analytics. Okay. So if I have 100 scans of somebody suffering from PTSD, which has never been proven, can I develop a marker for PTSD and show people exactly what therapies are taking you away from that marker? Can I prove, which we have done, we can identify Alzheimer's dementia 3 years prior to onset. What can we do to move that the other way? So there's a lot of power in this. Even things like flow state. Is flow state even real? Can you identify flow state? So the whole back end side of Wavi is basically creating markers for things that we may not even know that exist. There's no way to diagnose fibromyalgia or chronic fatigue right now. Other than a really intense cardiovascular stress test. And what's unique about it is that there are a lot of business professionals that suffer from chronic fatigue. In my opinion, there's a huge correlation to chronic stress because it's an inflammatory disease. Inflammation is caused via the stress pathway and cortisol.
Right.
And it's a cascade of effects. Right? Chronic inflammation is really good. When you cut your arm, you want it to seal up and stop bleeding. That's inflammation that causes that. What happens is that your body, because you've exposed it to so much stress, whether it's lack of sleep, lack of proper exercise, lack of proper nutrition, lack of, your environment, your hormones because you're angry or you're sad or you're whatever it may be, your body's not able to get out of that inflammation status or state, and you get stuck in this chronic inflammatory state. And that's what stress does. And so one of the things we're doing is we're adding heart rate variability to our platform, showing chronic and acute stress markers. And ironically, or lack of ironically, when you improve your heart rate variability and your management of stress, guess what? Most people's brains improve.
Okay, so this is one of the markers on this test. Is you can actually measure your heart rate variability. And what's the difference of measuring it on that versus measuring it maybe on another device? Like you have a lot of, auras, whoops. Those are kind of the
totally. Yeah, so ours is both an active and a passive heart rate variability. We use some things similar to another company that actually collect it from the earlobes. I can't state which one, but if people are familiar with it, they'll know it. Each different person has a different way of doing it. There are some that are more reliable than others. The company that's really led the way in the heart rate variability is HeartMath. If you're not familiar with them, I'd really look them up. We use really similar technology to that to make sure that it's as reliable as possible. The other things can be a little bit less reliable. They're great markers. And look, any biomarker that you're improving, heart rate variability is no harm, no foul. The more improved your heart rate variability is, the better off you are.
Right.
It's not like, there's an optimal, you're too high or too low. No, the better your heart rate variability is, the better. So, to me, any available biomarker that people are using, I don't care if it's Aura, Whoop, Wavi, HeartMath, etc. They're all out there. Use something. Take control of your wellness and your performance to make sure that you can be the best boss you can be, to make sure that you can be the best employee that you can be, to be the best entrepreneur you can be, because 100% of you is a hell of a lot better than 50% of you that thinks you're 100%.
Right. Okay. So this thing is, it's lightweight, it's super durable, it's easy to transport. It's not a big, huge machine. Like you said, one of the big benefits is you can set it up in 5 minutes. And the testing takes as little as 4 minutes to do.
Yep.
Where can someone find out more about this and like how to get a test?
Yeah, so you can always go to wavi.com or wavimed.com, excuse me. Or you can follow us on social media, Instagram, WaviMed, Facebook, WaviMed, every one of those. We do have an identify or find a practitioner feature on our website if someone's interested in doing that. If someone's interested in getting involved in Wavi, whatever that may be, we do have a input form on the website that all of those go to. I see all of those coming in. So if anyone is interested in anything questions-wise, please feel free to put information in there and I will have somebody get back to them.
Okay. If you guys are listening to this, I'll make sure that the links go in the show notes. So if you can just directly follow it in the links with the show notes. So what are some protocols? I know we talked about like kind of the opposite of, it's like if you're not sleeping, then obviously sleeping is going to improve it. But is there protocols you guys have that's for specific things, or do you just kind of leave it up to the person, or do you really want them to work with a medical professional so they can say, hey, these are some things that I would recommend that you start with?
Yeah, so the key behind there is going to be that we work with the practitioners to help the practitioners validate what they're doing.
Okay.
Me, unfortunately, as the Wavi representative, because we are regulated by the FDA, I'm not allowed to eat my cake and have it too. So there are things that significantly improve it. What I can tell people is it's not as rocket science as you think it is. The brain can be really scary and really intimidating. A WAVI report is really colorful and easy to interpret. Any practitioner can really understand it, and it's not hard. I like to call it kitchen table talk. Something that's really important to me is making sure that people feel like they can take ownership over this. And having really scary data like a blood panel. Blood panel doesn't mean anything to anybody.
Sure.
But brain speed, voltage, and physical reaction time mean something.
Right.
So, really it's your lifestyle. It's the habits that you have created in your life to optimize yourself. If a lot, and I think you said a lot of your listeners are entrepreneurs,
Right.
What entrepreneurs in the root sense, what they do is they solve problems. And instead of creating excuses, they find answers that solve those problems. And it can take a year, 5 years, 10 years, it doesn't matter. But to be able to solve those problems, you have to not only get the right team of people, but you also have to get the right resources and the right habits to hold yourself accountable.
Right.
Wellness and health are the same things. We're just giving you a way to measure it. Establish the correct habits to make sure that you're taking care of your body, your mind, and your mental stability. Whether it's meditation, whether it's working out, whether it's your nutrition, whether it's proper sleep, whether there's companies out there like, Brain Tap or Muse or anybody, those individual companies that really do amazing things for the brain. There's recovery centers, hyperbaric chamber companies are some of our biggest customers because they really do make a profound impact on the brain, especially with TBI patients. But to me, what are those habits that you can form to better take care of yourself?
Sure. Yeah. And, the only way to know that is, by results, but now we actually have a way to actually quantify your results through brain function and performance.
Exactly.
So if somebody wanted to get this test done, like what does this test cost? Does it differ from anywhere you go in the world, or is there kind of a general?
Yeah. So general price point, it's going to depend based on the practitioner, what their interventions, how much is included in the scan. A lot of my practitioners, include bundles in the scan where it's the intervention and the scan.
Okay.
But we've priced it really affordably for the practitioners. My sweet point, like let's say Upgrade Labs right now in both Beverly Hills and Santa Monica, I think they're doing a scan for less than $99.
Okay. So Upgrade Labs, you go, you get a scan, and then they probably give you a protocol of, hey, do this, this, and this.
Exactly.
And that's kind of I have kind of like an Upgrade Labs in my own office. So
I love it.
Yeah. So that's cool, man. Well, hey, is there anything, any last thing you want to tell people about you guys, WAVI, what you're doing and kind of what you're going to be doing rolling into 2020?
Yeah, 2020, we're expanding very quickly. Ultimately, what this boils down to is what I want people to understand is that you own your own health. You do. Nobody else, not the pharmaceutical companies, not your doctors, not the hospitals. You can take control of anything that you want. And the information is out there nowadays to have that accessibly and affordably. There's nobody that shouldn't have this. And if this is something you want that your doctor and or primary care and or anybody is not willing to do, then it may be something that you want to take into your own hands. You can create a movement, and we can all create a movement where it's okay to talk about mental illness in the sense of depression and anxiety. It's not something we have to hide from. It's something we need to educate people how to deal with and youth to deal with and how to cope with. Mental decline, cognitive decline. It's not something that happens to you. It's something that develops because of poor lifestyle habits. Now, there are other cases, but there are things that you can do about it. The more proactive that we are as a community talking about these things and spreading the information and the knowledge, the better off we can be. So, we're always looking for people to be involved. We're creating ambassador programs. We're creating, if anyone here listening knows a practitioner that they would love to have a WAVI, we would always love to entertain that conversation. Ultimately, to me, it's getting this information accessible to the patients and the individual consumers and the entrepreneurs and the people that are really pushing continually because you guys got to take care of your brains. It's really important. I want you to own your business for 10, 20, 30 years, not 10 because you've had too much stress and all of a sudden it's caused problems in your life where you can't be effective in your business and your personal life anymore. So, to me, that's all it is. It's a movement, and I really am blessed to be a part of it. And I can't say thank you enough for having me on the podcast today. I really, really do appreciate it. I love what you're doing. So that's all I got from me.
Okay, awesome. Well, hey, I want to thank you, Paul, for being on. If you guys are listening to this, all the info I will be putting in the show notes for Paul and Wavi, so you can get in contact with either one of them, and they can help you out. If you guys are looking to connect further with a group of like-minded people, join myself and so many others in the Habit-Based Lifestyle Secrets group on Facebook, where I will be dropping daily habits to help you live to your full potential. If you want to be one of our next case studies and begin living this habit-based lifestyle, reach out to me, Jesse, at habitbasedlifestyle.com. Until next episode, have a great day.
Awesome.
All right, man. That's it. So
wrap.
Yeah, thanks for being on here. How do I talk to you if I want to get one, or okay?
It's me. Where are you located?
I'm in San Clemente, California.
Southern. I'm literally in Cali like almost every week.
If you're at Upgrade Labs, Santa Monica, Beverly Hills, I'm about an hour and 15 minutes south.
Okay. Yeah, I gotta be up North California next week. Yeah, I mean, dude, if you're interested, obviously I'd love to hook you up with a deal. I appreciate you having us on the podcast. So I'll take care of you if it's something that you'd be interested in owning. I don't know what you do, personal use or for your platform. If you do have a little mini Upgrade Labs.
Yeah, dude, I would probably do both. I'd want it for both, is obviously to measure myself, but also I fly clients in. They'll spend a day here about every 2 to 3 months, and we kind of they'll spend a couple of days here, but it would be nice to just to be able to work with them and measure where they're at, and they come back and they can really see the effect of their habits changing. Have you heard of Livo2?
Why does that sound so familiar?
It's like oxygen. You put oxygen. It's like shit. They're in Colorado, which is crazy, Colorado Springs, but it's like an oxygen thing. But I could hook you up with the guy from there, which would be cool because it pushes oxygen into your brain. So people that have had concussions, PTSD, stuff like that, it helps with that. But it would be cool to be able to quantify.
Oh, dude, they need a Wavi. It's perfect for them. I'm serious, man. And that's what's been so cool. I'll be real with you. Like I come from sales, but I don't believe in I hate salespeople. In all honesty, I hate it. I make friends and I solve problems. And dude, like this solves a huge problem. There's never been an affordable way to look at the brain. I mean, I charge a practitioner, just so you know, so per scan, those little electrodes that go in the helmet, those are $40. That's it. The whole system as a whole is $7,500.
Okay.
It's not overly asinine. Like most stuff on the market, 60, 70, 80 grand, and it doesn't do nearly what Wavi does. Especially with the background analytics, and the user ability. I can have someone trained in less than 3 hours on a full clinical EEG. That's astonishing.
Oh, wow.
So, to me, dude, I have finance. If it is something you're interested in, I have financing available for literally as low as like $300 a month. It's so affordable. It's unbelievable. Pending credit, obviously. Or I have some outright options that if you were interested, to be honest with you, man, I'm a huge fan of the financing option just because it preserves cash flow. And we've bought down the interest to like 0%. So it's like a no-brainer. The training fees included with it. I literally fly out. I train you by hand or one of my team members. If it's you, I'll train you. I normally just work. If I'm being honest with you, I do a lot of the global scale stuff. So I work with our distributors, the military, et cetera. But I mean, dude, I think that I love what you're doing. So I'd love to train you by hand and really get involved with your movement and, just network. I think you're doing amazing stuff from all the stuff that I've done. And I just want to continue to connect people like you and Jim Quick and Dave Asprey and all these individuals to just get us all together and show people they can take control of their health.
For sure, man. I got a couple people I can hook you up with that would definitely be good resources for you.
I love it.
One would be the Live O2, and
Yeah,
then
for sure.
I got another guy, Anthony DiClemente, who's like a pretty big name biohacker.
I've heard of him.
Yeah, so I could hook you up with a couple guys too. So and
That's awesome, man.
there'll be people who like want to actually like quantify this and like have it in their place.
I love it, dude. I appreciate the time today. No joke. I would love to stay in contact, obviously. Let me know when the episode's going to air. I do need to go run and pack real quick.
Yeah,
So I got to get my ass to the
Go for it.
airport. But dude, seriously, I appreciate it. I'm super pumped. I appreciate the opportunity to connect with you. I think it's awesome. And I'm really pumped, man.
Okay, me too, man. So I'll keep in contact with you either way.
Yeah, we'll touch base for sure.
All right, man. Take care.
All right. Enjoy, brother.
All right. Bye.
Bye.